A moment of unity for the Parisians coming to terms with the fire at Notre Dame. They drew together to sing and pray during a candlelit vigil close to the cathedral. For many, it provided an opportunity to reflect and hope that Notre Dame will one day be restored.
Seeing these spontaneous gatherings tonight has led to small moments of prayer, but also a lot of hope. We can at last say that this fire, which seemed so insurmountable and caused great damage to the cathedral, still left the most important parts preserved, and it remains a place of prayer.
Thoughts are now turning in earnest towards reconstructing Notre Dame. The restoration has become a matter of state. France's President Emmanuel Macron says the cathedral will be restored to its former glory.
Nous sommes ce peuple.
We are a people of builders, and we have so much to rebuild. So yes, we will reconstruct the Cathedral of Notre Dame to be even more beautiful than before. And I want that goal to be reached within 5 years.
That will be no easy task. Footage from inside the charred building shows debris everywhere. However, its bell towers and walls are intact. That's thanks to the hundreds of firefighters who fought the raging blaze. At the vigil, a spontaneous show of appreciation. A moment of optimism and gratitude as France faces the damage done to a beloved landmark.
DW's Barbara Vazel is covering this story for us from Paris. Hi, Barbara. We heard Emmanuel Macron there saying it's going to be 5 years, within 5 years, to rebuild this cathedral. That is a pretty ambitious target. What has been the reaction to the president's words?
It is hugely ambitious, of course, but that's Emmanuel Macron for you, the French president. He always tries to reach to the stars. But if you look today, for instance, at Le Figaro, the big French newspaper, it says Notre Dame will be reborn. So it really echoes what public sentiment is. People really want this reborn. They want this rebuilt, this church, and they want to see it as quickly as possible, not dragging on for decades. Because the problem is that one of the experts said yesterday morning already, after having looked at the damage to Notre Dame, this could take up to 15 years. So that's a totally different time frame. But the mood in France is that you have to look forward, you sort of have to grab this and run with it and sort of really push hard in order to get reconstruction underway. However, what France is lacking is not the money. The money comes pouring in, particularly from the family corporations, the secret wealth of France, L'Oreal, Total and others. But it is the expertise. They will have to draft in craftsmen and artisans from all over Europe in order to get the rebuilding work done there, because they have neglected their national heritage for so long. They simply don't have the people to do a restoration project like that.
Barbara, looking back at what actually happened on Monday night, there's been more details now trickling in about the moments after the fire was detected. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it seems that the investigation so far, or the reconstruction of what happened that fateful evening Monday night, is now more complete. And we see that it's not the firefighters who were to blame for a belated reaction, which is something that seems to have been one of the first conclusions. But the firefighters arrived there early, 6 minutes after the alarm was raised. But the cathedral personnel obviously sort of failed in sort of making earlier calls and describing what was happening. And that is because they didn't understand it. 2 fire alarms went off shortly after 6 o'clock on Monday evening. And the first one, nobody knew where it was burning. The cathedral was evacuated, and only 20 minutes later, some Parisians living on the waterfront here called the fire service and said, now there's a fire under the roof in Notre Dame. And inside the church, they hadn't been able to localize it, and they didn't understand the seriousness of it. And then the horrible thing happened. The fire caught in those centuries-old beams going back back to the 13th century, this huge roof, and it just burned like crazy. It just tinder dry, and that was the flames we could see for 4 hours, and that was really what was endangering the survival of the cathedral. And firefighters were heroic. Some went up into the bell towers and sort of fought the fire from there, and that was dangerous. So they really risked their lives. And it's become now clearer what the problem was. There was no real emergency plan for an event like this.
All right, Barbara, just very briefly, if you can, if you look at the vigils and the way that Paris has reacted, it looks like France is just starting to come to terms with what happened.
They do. People are really, everybody yesterday was talking about the heartbreak, and people passing the bridge here on the Ile Saint-Louis, where we can see the cathedral, the damaged cathedral in the back in the spring sunshine. Everybody says now we have to rebuild. So people are looking forward, but there was a lot of emotion. There was tangible sort of heartbreak about the damage done to this hugely historic, hugely important historic monument that is so close to the heart of everybody in Paris and in France.
All right, DW's Barbara Vazel for us in Paris. Thank you very much.